In this series of videos, we will read the Care Certificate workbooks, both what you need to know and what do you know now. This video covers Standard 6, Communication, what you need to know, and it's over to my colleague to read through this workbook.
The Care Certificate, Communication, what you need to know. Standard 6, the Care Certificate Workbook. The importance of effective communication. Good communication develops your knowledge and understanding about individuals and the part played by other workers so that the best care and support possible can be provided. It helps build working relationships where each person's views are valued and taken into account. 6 C's. Communication. Communication is an essential part of a caring relationship and helps to encourage trusting relationships with other workers and families, as well as the individuals you care for. Types of communication. Talking is often seen as the most common method or type of communication, but most communication is silent. Gestures, tone of voice, grins, grimaces, shrugs, nods, moving away or closer, crossing arms and legs all tell us far more than words. Learning to take account of these reactions is all part of developing your communication skills to achieve the best outcomes for individuals. Communication can be harder when we can't see these signs, and such as when we use the phone, text, or email. Different people have different ways of communicating that work best for them. Some of the different types of communication are verbal communication. Differences in how you speak, including the tone, pitch, speed, and volume of your voice, could change how your messages are taken in. Try to avoid using jargon or abbreviations and complicated words and terminology. Make sure you always speak in a respectful way, adjusting your speech to suit the individual. Sign language. This is a recognised language throughout the world. British Sign Language, BSL, is used by individuals in the country, and there are variations of sign language in different regions. Makaton. This is a form of language that uses a large collection of signs and symbols. It is often used with those who have learning and physical difficulties, or a hearing impairment. Braille. Braille is a code of raised dots that are read using touch. For people who are visually impaired or who are blind, the system supports reading and writing. Body language. This is a type of non-verbal communication. There are many different aspects of body language, including gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, body positioning, and body movements. Each of these will communicate information about an individual or a worker, often without them realizing it. Gestures. These are hand or arm movements that emphasize what is being said or used as an alternative to speaking. Facial expressions. These support what is being said by showing reactions or feelings. These can give you valuable clues that you can use to check out the person's feelings. Eye contact. Maintaining eye contact is an important way for a worker to show that they are engaged and listening. Position. The way that we stand, sit, hold our arms when we are talking will provide the clues about our feelings, attitudes, and emotions. Written communication. This method is used to send messages, keep records, or provide evidence. Communication with other workers and individuals. Workers will develop many different relationships. Some will be formal and others will be more informal. Successful two-way communication is crucial in both cases. A relationship based on trust and understanding from the beginning will provide the basis for good care and support, whether short or long term. Poor communication can quickly lead to confusion and distress. The process of exchanging information through communication is not always straightforward. If the information shared is inaccurate or misleading, mistakes can be made which can result in poor care. Formal. Formal communication is likely to be used in the working environment, particularly between you and other workers. Informal communication is likely to be used with friends and family using familiar words or slang. You should always use the communication method that is appropriate for the person and the situation. You should watch for clues from any individual that come from unspoken messages. These non-verbal ways of communicating come from body language, position, gestures. For example, when asking someone if they are in pain, they may say no, but with a wrinkled brow. Uncomfortable facial expression or body movement may say otherwise. As an observant worker, you'll be able to notice when an individual is becoming confused, angry, upset, stressed, or anxious without them telling you. You can then take action to help stop this from happening or help them express their feelings in the best way for them. By noticing an individual's reactions, you can ask yourself the following questions. Do I need to change the type of communication I am using to help the individual understand? Do I need to be aware of how the conversation is affecting them? Is there something the individual is not communicating to me? Recognizing the unspoken messages can help you ask good questions and develop supportive relationships. It improves trust as the individual can see that you are interested in them and trying to understand and meet their needs. Communication and language needs, wishes and preferences. To find out what an individual needs or wants so your work can be centered on them as a person, you have to connect with them. So that means that you must understand their communication needs right from the offset. People's unique communication needs vary depending on their ability, disability, illness or condition, as well as on their personal preferences. If you can't find out from talking and listening how a person needs to communicate, you will need to use other methods of communication to help them get information across to you in a way that works best for them. The individual's family, friends or carer might be able to share an experience of which communication methods work best. But sometimes part of the problem is that they don't communicate well with the person being supported, so don't rely on this method alone. Communicating by touch or physical contact. The individual's preferences are particularly important in relation to using touch as part of non-verbal communication. Touching a person might be done as a form of communication, for example, shaking hands or kissing. But other types of touch will almost certainly also communicate something to them. For example, what they experience from ways that they are being physically helped to stand or sit or turn over in bed, and particularly their experience of being touched in the course of intimate personal care, such as washing. In all cases, how you touch anyone must be decided thoughtfully and in a person-centered way. So your use of touch may well be different from one person to the next, and will be something that you will need to talk to about with each person whom you are helping so that you know their particular preferences. This is also a key area to talk about with your manager and work colleagues, especially if you are supporting anyone who cannot clearly communicate their own preferences to you. On the whole, any form of touch must be consented to by both people. But sometimes it may be necessary to touch someone when they do not want to be touched. For example, if they need to be physically restrained for their own or someone else's safety, you must talk to your manager about what are the agreed ways of working in your workplace so you know what to do if this happens. Remember too that the use of touch must be within the rules of your infection control within your workplace. See also Care Certificate Standard 7, Privacy and Dignity, and 15, Infection Prevention and Control. Some specialist methods of communication. Touch. Touch is used in particular ways to communicate with people who are deaf and visually impaired. Workers sign information onto the individual's hands in a way of passing on information. For those who with communication skills that may be limited, technological aids can be used. Hearing aids, hearing loops, text phones, text messages on mobile phones, and magnifiers are all forms of technological communication devices. Some individuals may use word or symbol boards to support their speech and or their understanding. This helps the listener by associating a picture or printed word with the verbal communication in order to be able to understand what is being said. Others may use speech synthesizers, which replace speech either by producing a visual display or written text by producing synthesized speech that expresses the information verbally. Voice recognition software can be purchased for computers, including many tablet pad computers with touchscreens. To translate speech to written text, or the other way around, some word processing programs and apps have this already built in. When using communication aids, always check that they function properly, that they are clean and in good working order. Should you have any worries about communication aids or technology not working properly or being unclean, report this to a senior member of the staff or an individual's carer or family member. Barriers to effective communication. A barrier is anything that will get in the way of communication. There are a wide range of barriers including attitude. When a worker is abrupt due to time limits, not having enough resources, or their mood, the person they are speaking to may feel intimidated or frustrated and not want to communicate. Limited use of technology. When the technological aids known to be the best way for someone to communicate are not available. Body positioning. Sitting too close could be intimidating and would make an individual feel uncomfortable. Sitting too far away could show a lack of interest or concern. Emotions. When someone is depressed, angry, embarrassed, or upset, their emotions may affect their ability to think and communicate in a sensible way. Physical. When someone has physical conditions that create communication difficulties, for example, being breathless, not having any teeth, or being in pain. Not enough time. Not giving individuals time to say what they want or make them feel rushed and reluctant to express their true wishes. Poor or negative body language. Crossed arms or legs, poor facial expressions, poor body positioning, constant fidgeting, or looking at a watch or mobile phone can make someone less likely to communicate. Lack of privacy. Think carefully about where the private and confidential conversation should take place. Stereotyping. Generalizations about a group of people that are wrong or misleading. An example would be that all older people are hard of hearing. Other barriers include sensory impairments, culture, language, noise, lighting, or substance misuse. Reducing barriers to communication. As a worker, you should do what you can to reduce any barriers to communication. The most effective ways to make sure that you are meeting someone's communication needs and providing person-centered care is to know as much as possible as you can about them. A communication passport might be used by some which provides vital information about their needs, wishes, and preferences. This pulls together the information into a format that is easy to read, often with pictures and photographs. Putting something like this together with an individual can be another good way of getting to know them and well understanding their needs. Your organisation might have suggested a suggested format, but at a simple level you can put one together with an individual to suit them. It is important to get regular feedback about your communication style and methods from the people you provide care and support to, so that you can continue to improve how you communicate. You could also increase your awareness of different communication needs and methods through taking up learning opportunities. Experience will help you to develop a variety of new methods of communication by selecting the best one for each situation. Be creative. Open body language and a positive, non-judgmental attitude will further help reduce barriers. Your communication skills can be seen as a toolbox, using the right tool for the job and choosing a different tool if that one doesn't work well. Checking understanding. Checking that communication has been understood is an essential part of the process. A vital skill that checks understanding is summarizing. A summary should bring together the main points of an exchange of information. This will allow the individual to correct you if necessary. This can help you to check that you have understood correctly. Questions are another way of checking whether a message has been received. Make sure you ask questions in a way that the individual has to provide a detailed response. Open questions, rather than asking questions which require only a yes or a no. Closed questions. For example, what do you like to do in your spare time? However, closed questions can be useful in some situations. Summarize. This means to think about the main points of the conversation or communication and shorten or simplify them in order to repeat them back to the individual. This will help to check your and their understanding. Additional information and support. Information and support on particular communication needs can be found from specialist charities and associations, especially those specialising in particular disabilities or medical conditions. Websites can provide material on forums, service or groups in the local area that you could attend or use to find out more. In addition, some local charities offer specific human aids such as befrienders, advocates or mentors. A befriender could support an individual in overcoming emotional difficulties that are a barrier to their communication. An advocate could communicate on the individual's behalf if their skills are very limited. A number of additional key experts available to support individuals with their communication needs include speech and language therapists, interpreters, translators, and clinical psychologists or counsellors. Further learning can come from other workers, your manager, and a wide range of courses and qualifications. Confidentiality. Confidentiality is an essential principle in health ways and codes of practice. The basis of good working relationship is trust. This is dependent on the individual being confident that the personal information about them is treated confidentially. Information about someone must only be shared with others involved in their care and support on a need-to-know basis. Any information should not usually be disclosed without the person's informed consent. The circumstances when information must be shared, even if the individual does not give their consent, are listed later in this section. Informed consent. To give informed consent, the individual must be provided with all the necessary information in order to make a considered decision. See Standard 9 for further information about consent and informed consent. An individual's right to confidentiality also means that the person's notes or details must be always stored securely. For example, in a locked cupboard, and not left where they can be seen by unauthorized people. Computers or mobile devices, such as electronic tablets, need to be protected by a password and firewall. When talking about an individual, you must ensure no one else can overhear you. It is essential that you obey the laws about confidentiality, particularly General Data Protection Regulations 2016, which has been updated, which place obligations on organizations to process personal data securely. This includes protecting people's privacy, giving individuals the right to consent to data collection and the right to have their data removed. Human Rights Act 1998. This act determines a number of basic rights for any citizen in the UK. The important one in this context is the right to respect for private and family life, home and correspondence. You must find out from your manager what your workplace's agreed ways of working are for putting these laws and other aspects of confidentiality into practice. Limits to confidentiality. Whenever possible, individuals should provide their consent for the transfer of information. However, this may not always be possible, and there will be occasions where the information normally considered confidential needs to be shared. Examples of occasions when confidentiality may have to be broken are: a person is likely to harm themselves, a person has been or is likely to be involved in a serious crime, a person is likely to harm others, your safety is placed at risk, a child or vulnerable adult has suffered or is at risk from suffering significant harm. There will be times when you face dilemmas about confidentiality, not knowing what to do or if you should speak to anyone about the information you have. At these times, it is important to speak with your manager and follow the agreed ways of working. If your manager is not available, a senior member of staff or other workers should be able to help. See also Care Certificate Standard 14, Handling Information. Communication in summary. Communication may take place face-to-face, by telephone, by text, by email, internet or social networks, by written reports or letters. It requires you to listen or read and understand, as well as speak or write. Whether you are communicating face-to-face, on the telephone or in the written form, always be respectful. Try to match your method of communication with the individual's needs and be aware of confidentiality.
Great work on finishing this What You Need to Know booklet. In this series, we also have the What Do You Need to Know activity booklet that follows on from this video.